I haven't had experience with many zombie movies in my time, so in preparation for the new film release, I had the privilege to watch 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later, acclaimed works in the zombie genre. That's why I was so utterly confused by this new movie that didn't seem to have a consistent plot or sense of direction, and at points appeared more like a comedy. Sure, parts of 28 Years Later were enjoyable when they were running from and fighting off zombies, but there's little substance to the actual story, and some story choices that they do make seem questionable to me. Let's start with a discussion of the first two movies in the series in order to understand the drop in quality, confusing franchise narrative, and where this new film begins. This review will include timestamps for when I begin talking about spoilers for the new film, so look in the description for that. I'll be spoiler free for the past films and just give a brief overview. Now, 28 Days Later is a 2002 film that stars Cillian Murphy, Brendan Gleeson, and Naomie Harris. Cillian Murphy wakes up in a hospital 28 days after the zombie outbreak and roams the eerie streets of London that are completely empty. In this franchise, I know many different films have different takes on the zombie types, but these zombies run. They're fast, you know? Cillian Murphy meets Naomie Harris early in the film, and they struggle and meet new survivors, and I won't give away too much, but it really delves into the human nature's corrupt side for when shit hits the fan. I don't know much about the zombie genre, being relatively new to it, but I've heard tales about how this film revolutionized the genre. Despite having this purposeful, grainy revolution, it almost acts like found footage but shot like a regular film. This blurriness, which may turn some people off, really becomes vital to its sense of, fast-paced, fast-edited zombie violence, and it does it super well. The plot feels engaging, and there is never a dull moment in 28 Days. Cillian Murphy, who initially appears like a bearded, clumsy, regular old schmo, transforms into a person hardened by experience and survival instincts. Flash forward to 2007, we got the sequel, 28 Weeks Later, focusing on different characters. Supposedly, all the zombies in London starve after 5 weeks, and rebuilding of society begins in a quarantine section-off zone of the city. As you can imagine, things don't go well. This film stars Jeremy Renner, Rose Byrne, and a small performance by Idris Elba. The two child main characters also stand out in this film. I also feel like delves into new concepts and world building, morals and ethics of what to do to stop the infection, as well as just entertaining violence and zombie action. It's got amazing, well-written and performed characters, a good story, and generally seems to be well-made despite having such a low budget, and despite not having the same creative figures behind the original film. Some of the scenes in this movie are literally insane if you think about it, because they combine mass panic and hysteria in a claustrophobic setting, which is something the first movie lacked, as the number of people in the film was much smaller, with a real military presence resulting in more zombie action. So despite some people saying the sequel doesn't live up to the original, to me it stands on its own as still massively entertaining. Now we'll come to the 2025's 28 Years Later. Written and created by the same people that made the original 28 Days Later. If they hadn't waited so long in between installments, they probably could have called this 28 Months Later. In fact, they could have named it that and still probably would have made sense, but maybe they wanted the story to be more far removed from the rest of the happenings of this franchise. Now, we open on an island in Scotland, protected from the infected, and live with a whole community in a place in the United Kingdom, which has been quarantined off from the rest of the world. Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son, if there's one positive thing about this movie is that the actor Alfie Williams that played Spike does such an amazing job. His body language, his composure, his ability to convey feelings that you'd expect to be underdeveloped as a young actor, he does all in this film, and with ease too. Aaron Taylor Johnson plays a very flawed character in this film. Because of that, he's probably one of the most interesting characters. After a certain point, you wish you saw more of him, because his screen presence was also very strong, at least compared with some of the other characters. Everyone goes crazy over this film using iPhone 15s attached to a rig, but I'll be honest, the iPhone rig shots only have a limited appeal to me, and there's nothing remotely superior to using iPhones. I understand that the rig allows one to see the video from any point along the diameter, adding a cool effect in editing, but when paired with the rest of the action, it comes off sort of corny. One of the soldiers in this movie, played by Edwin Rading, I don't know if I said that right, looks like Josh Hutcherson with bleached hair and sort of like one of the default skins. Overall, the entire plot is just kind of messy and just feels like it doesn't seem to understand what it wants to be entirely, or that the screenplay hasn't had its full time in the oven being cooked, perhaps a lack of creative oversight or not enough eyes on the project. I feel like because of the bows and arrows like combat, we got sort of medieval vibe to the landscape, except with zombies, and this is a sharp contrast to the previous movies in the series. Parts of this film had me laughing instead of terrified, and terrified instead of laughing, and because of that, it was hard to take seriously. 28 Years Later has a great concepts and performances, but the execution is questionable. Alright, now we're going to be delving into some major spoilers. Spoiler time. So the first 30 to 45 minutes of this felt very strong, where the father and son duo travel beyond the walls of the settlement across the sandbar to the mainland, where the infection grows rampant. We also see that the infected have evolved, and there are three main types of zombies: the slow, crawling, bloated type, on the ground, the running, screaming regular type, and then the alphas, which can command other infected. There are also so many questions here. For instance, are bloated zombies the rotted ones that are like decades old? If so, are the rest of the zombies like new? Or are they reproducing, or how are they surviving food-wise when supposedly in the prequel, 28 weeks later, the zombies are known to starve to death without new humans to eat? How do they evolve to a point where there's alphas in control of different territories like a wolf pack? There's just so much that is just so interesting that I want to know about that the film just doesn't explain it all. It just puts it at surface level and expects you to understand. If the rest of the world outside the United Kingdom is up and running, then there's 28 weeks later, ending of the fall of Paris, the end of that movie, is that canon? If Spike's mom knew she had cancer, why didn't she tell Spike earlier and save them the entire trip across the mainland? Or was her moment of clarity that she had only supposed to happen when the writers wanted it to happen? Why does the alpha zombie rip people's spines out of their bodies like the Predator? And what is even the purpose of that? And why did they evolve to do that? How did the zombie get pregnant? And how is its baby not infected with the rage virus? So many unanswered questions. The end of this movie just sets up a sequel and doesn't have a big climax or anything rewarding. Basic story structure allows for introduction, fluctuating dips of rising action, a climax towards the end, and then falling action after the climax, and then resolution. This movie, I'm pretty sure, ignores basic story structure because it doesn't really have that at all. It's okay to end a story with loose ends, but it has to feel satisfying at the end of a story. To some regard, something has to be resolved. I suppose Spike's mother's sickness is resolved, but in the way it's done is so weird, and I'll get to that. But to me, I was expecting some big showdown with the alpha zombie, maybe like an I Am Legend where they storm the characters' defenses and fight. I feel like the story lost its flavor when Spike took his mother to the mainland, because at that point, him going to the mainland on a simple hunch felt a little far-fetched. Ralph Fiennes is a great actor and something I was looking forward to during this runtime, as I knew he was going to be in the film, but when he arrives, the concept of his skull temple garden thing just feels a little weird and really messed up. Even though Spike says Ian Kelson, the name of Ralph Fiennes' character, is supposedly sane, he's like, yeah, this guy's really kind, he's a sweet man, he's sane, not insane. I don't believe it. There's a difference between telling someone their mom has terminal cancer and then putting them down in front of a child and handing the child their mom's skull as a gesture of kindness. Who peer-reviewed this and agreed it was a good idea? It's no wonder critics and audiences are divided. The alpha zombie with no clothes, it looks like Jason Momoa, except he screams and just runs at people and is really, you just start laughing at him. Ralph Fiennes' character also names the alpha zombie Samson, which is just so hard to take seriously when he looks like this. Overall, 28 years later could have been written better. I enjoy its performances and different concepts, but the execution could have been handled better. Dumping into a cliffhanger sequel baiting ending without proper resolution of story satisfaction other than a weird encounter with Ralph Fiennes in his Tower of Skulls just doesn't work. Maybe I'm missing the point, maybe I want to see more action, or maybe more Aaron Taylor Johnson, but this should have terrified me. Instead it made me laugh, or maybe it was a bit of both, and to me, that just says this movie was confused about what it wanted to be. You're more than welcome to see this in theaters, but to me, the two previous movies had knocked this one out of the park in enjoyability. This was just messy, and if you want to watch it, I'd say wait till streaming comes out on streaming, because then you'll be able to pause it and turn it off if you don't want to. I mean, obviously, support your local theaters. Do that. It's just, to me, this one wasn't worth it. That's my review. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. If you disagree, make sure to comment below and tell me what you thought, and I'll respond. Okay, thank you.